My fellow Americans, today the World Health Organization officially announced that this is a global pandemic and put in place the first federally mandated quarantine in over 50 years.
In the past 2 weeks, the number of cases of COVID-19 outside China has increased 13-fold.
We declared a public health emergency.
And we have called every day for countries to take urgent and aggressive action. We have rung the alarm bell loud and clear.
Hi, my name is Francesca DeCaro. I teach preschool all the way up to elementary school. I had the opportunity to teach in Long Island, New York, and in Danvers Public Schools.
Hi, I am Melissa Lozier. I am the owner and director of Footloose School of Dance in Belchertown, Massachusetts.
My name is Amy Sanchez. I teach at East Gloucester Elementary School. I teach first grade ELA, so all the phonics and literacy, reading and writing.
The fields are empty, the playgrounds deserted, and all across the United States, school buildings sit empty. More than half of the country's students have been sent home.
Many schools around the world, as you know, have shut down, some for extended periods of time as this virus spreads.
Another hidden cost of the corona pandemic.
When it first came out, it was just a shock. It was a little bit scary because all of a sudden I was getting all my plans together on what I had just designed and configured for the year, and then it was like a wash. It was all about to change in about a week.
And I really thought this was going to be short-lived, so I thought we'd just get through this hurdle and then we'd get going. We were starting to put a show together. We hadn't done that yet.
It was definitely a period of reconstruction and a lot of newness.
Just growth and like trying to learn last minute. So there was a lot of support from my fellow employees here, and they wanted to keep things going too. We did whatever we had to do, and it wasn't always comfortable and it wasn't always ideal, but we made it work.
But I feel like it's definitely helped me be more flexible and adaptable as an educator.
So we do have those students that stuck with it, and we have a lot of students that we lost along the way because they weren't into the virtual. They weren't motivated by that.
I would say like the biggest challenges is keeping students motivated while looking at a screen. That can be extremely difficult. Also, not knowing what their situation might be at home and not knowing what kind of help that they're receiving.
Maybe they didn't have they would say they didn't have the space at home, or they didn't want their child to be on a computer all day for school and then for dance, and I understand that.
While being in school, you have a full day with them and you can help them. They can ask questions, you can give them different strategies, you can give them different tools. While being behind a computer screen, you're limited to kind of what you can do as a teacher.
So by starting from scratch, we kind of went from what we knew first, which was read alouds and just kind of how to engage the kids with something that was small.
I'm Hadley and I'm in second grade. I'm in first. No. What? He's not in first. He's not even in kindergarten yet. He's still in preschool.
Can you tell us what grade you're in?
I'm in third grade. I like doing art and math. I like spending time with my friends.
That's a tough one. Usually social studies, which in social studies is usually history.
So my daughter, when she was in first grade, she had all the way up till March with her teacher, but Hadley she forms relationships very easily, and she loved this teacher, and she was just so sweet, and Hadley kind of clung to her. And then we got that email saying they weren't coming back, and my daughter cried. And she said that she was gonna miss her teacher, and that was the first thing. Not just all of her friends, but that came later, but that she missed her teacher.
I think they were just so affected by and curious about what was going on in the world at that time.
They're definitely losing that relationship, like that friend relationship that you build in the classroom. I mean, a lot of us gain friends and develop friendships at school. So being virtually, they're unable to, work together.
A lot of the kids started to stop communicating with us, or we felt like when they were on Zoom, they were kind of almost like disinterested or sad.
Yeah, I definitely do see a change in behavior. I feel like they feel that they can get away with a lot because they're distracted. They're distracted by their cats, their dogs, their animals, their sister, their brother. You can set expectations online, but those are most likely difficult for them to follow if they're not being enforced as much versus in the classroom where you're constantly keeping an eye on everybody at once.
And so when you're at home and doing school at home, do you find that it's easy to get distracted?
Yeah, because Brett's always like playing with his toys and it's very loud.
Sometimes I get distracted, but that happens very easily, especially when I'm at home.
Sometimes their dogs keep barking.
It happens a lot to me. I'm in the middle of talking and then someone goes, "Miss Robert," and I'm like, oh my gosh.
I do my Google Meets in my room. Sometimes I do it in my downstairs, but mostly upstairs in my room.
Yeah, this is his little thing we made, so he has his own workstation standing in front of him, so he's not distracted. Like, this was working really well for us because I'm here most of the time and I can supervise him, and Mike's not having to juggle his work meetings with Jack. But if both parents work, or if you have a single parent who needs to work.
Some people were able to give their children that attention and do things their way. But because myself and my husband were working the whole time, my husband's an essential worker. When my son, my younger, a 5-year-old, was at home and my daughter was having to learn on, a lot of times on the computer, we would set him up next to her and give him, like letters to draw. But it was very short-lived. He's got the attention span of a 5-year-old, so it was much harder to get him to sit for longer, which he wouldn't be doing in school anyways. They would be moving from one thing to the next and all attention on them, and that we just didn't have that.
Yeah, but my Nana and Pet Bear kind of come over sometimes during the week and help me with my schoolwork, and my Pet Bear keeps Brett company. And it's easier when I do it in school because if I need my teacher's help, she won't be there, and she knows the answers to all the problems.
So definitely with second graders, the quality of work isn't as great as it would be in person. So if a student doesn't fully answer a question, I'm not going to dock them points for it, but I'm rather going to elaborate on their comments. Tell me more about this subject. Tell me more about the water cycle. Tell me more about this. So that they are still getting those comments and the feedback, but they're not getting graded on, oh, they didn't fully complete their work.
When we left in March, their writing started to tank a little bit as well. We started to see a little bit more reversals, a little bit less like spelling applied to their writing, and then kids would just lose the quality of work, like they just kind of wanted to get it done and move on because they were home, they were in their safe space, they didn't want to treat it as their school space.
Oh, I had to stay on my computer pretty long. Yeah, it wasn't very fun.
When I don't go out, I just go crazy, like if I'm inside for an entire day. So this quarantine, I just need to get my crazies out if I don't go outside.
Screen time has definitely changed. Oh my goodness, yes.
I think, iPads and screens in general should be limited. I feel like being on a screen that entire time definitely not only affects your mental health, but your physical health as well. I know it gives me a headache. I can only imagine what, they're feeling. And
I feel very strongly about screen time being very limited for the young children because they are developing their motor skills, they are developing their eyesight skills, and I think it's causing a lot of fatigue in the kids.
Mostly because, if we need to get something done and we need them to either not be right in that space or for them to be occupied, we hand them the iPad, and that would never be how we did it before. It was a certain amount of screen time. If we needed to make dinner or something and needed to keep them out of the kitchen, it would be half an hour or whatever. But now it's more.
And Some of them are used to going on video games and things to cope with their parents working from home and them learning, and I think it's affected their behavior too.
I always said, like, I didn't want my children to be gamers. And I just recently broke out my Xbox 360 so he could learn how to do, got him games, because it's like, we need to get him off the iPad and do other things that make his brain go. But we let some of the rules go, because it's like, well, what are we gonna do? And I think we're more lax about our rules, and I feel like we need to get back on track.
Districts all across the state putting together plans for what school might look like come fall.
The proposed plan would start the school year with 2 weeks of virtual online learning, followed by modified in-person classes, with half of the students going to class Monday and Tuesday and half Thursday and Friday.
When we started in the fall, we had a lot of anxious students and a lot of students that were just blank, like really quiet. And we were told that they had a lot of personality in kindergarten, and they brought a lot of spunk to learning, but when we got them, it was like we were dancing over ourselves to try to get them to participate, because I think they were afraid of getting sick, and they were kind of okay with being with their friends, but they didn't know what the boundary was.
It's not as social. It was funny, when we first came in with the mask, there wasn't a lot of talking at all. Even classes that would not stop talking, there was no talking, and it was almost eerie. I'll be like, okay, you guys talk or something, because it's way too weird without them talking. It's a barrier. Come in only 5 minutes before your class, and you have to leave right away, and we have to stagger our classes. You couldn't really have anyone in the lobby at the same time. That's why I really feel like people are just gonna be completely different toward each other. And I think that's the biggest thing through this. I just feel like people are gonna treat each other differently throughout this whole thing.
Their mental health, affecting them down the road with being online, I definitely think it will, because I have seen, even with my own cousins, they are very sad, they are very depressed, like being away from friends and, developing that type of connection.
I will tell you, in this situation that I'm dealing with right now, the kids coming in from remote kind of still hold on to that trauma a little bit more. Like, we saw it for months with the kids saying, what did you do this weekend? And they would say, we stayed home, my parents are afraid of the virus. They would blatantly tell us that. And then I have a student coming in now, and he's got some aggressive behaviors, because I think he's so angry with his home life and being there for so long that he can't hold it in. And it's hard for the other kids to see that, because they've been in school, they've been nurtured now, and I think that's going to be huge.
We're starting to see like a slow rebuild of like their personalities, and my son had a rough start getting back to school, and I kind of warned his teacher that and I told her of the situation, like he was getting not a lot of one-on-one, he started to get a little bit angry, like easily.
And I just feel like with the kids having the option to be remote versus the ones that have been in school, then meshing the two, you're gonna have like a few that stick out, that don't know how to sit in the chair, like they're gonna think they're still at home, and then you're gonna have the ones that know what the routine is, and they'll be the leaders of the room because they've been in school. So I think meshing the two is gonna be tricky.
When they told him he couldn't do something, he would just cry and sob and yell, like, you don't like me, and like, just not something he would have normally done. He was thriving in school the year before.
They aren't building relationships with anybody, really. I mean, like I said before, they're not going to remember who their teacher might be that was virtual on a screen. That's how they're gonna remember me. That's how they're gonna remember the friends that they might meet online. So I think it definitely does affect them mentally, with not being able to be in person and develop that emotion in that relationship.
I will tell you, there was the one day I created these little Jenga blocks, and I put the sight words on them, and they had to work with a partner, so I had one on each side of the table, and I mean, they had so much fun. It was these little packets, and they were sharing them, so I definitely sprayed them down afterwards, but for them to be able to play together, I mean, one boy who never really talked was able to say to me, Miss Sanchez, I had so much fun. And that's all I can hope for while I'm teaching phonics, because sometimes it's pretty rote for the kids. I'd just say more opportunities for that as we go into like the spring. I'm definitely gonna try to incorporate for sure. yeah, I'd say around February, March is where I start to see their personality now. And they're starting to feel like they really know the groove, and they're joking with me and sharing funny stories. So it's taken them a lot to reset, for sure.
Sometimes I have 8 hours in school, but it's actually really fun because I get to see all my teachers, my friends. Yeah, I like seeing them every day.
Do you like going into school or do you like remote better?
Probably going into school.
Just going off by today, I feel like for years to come, we're gonna see how we're gonna have to kind of catch them up. And I don't wanna take the opinion of fixing them, but I feel like we're gonna have to adapt teaching in a new way. I really do. And not so much with technology, but I think we're gonna have to create the more hands-on experiences and the more creative writing and the more discussion amongst the kids so that they can get the language back with their peers and the critical thinking skills, and they can also learn in a way that's fun.
I just hope that in the future that we could be back together and learning, because I really do think that younger kids especially do need that interaction. That's part of school, is interacting with their classmates, going outside for recess. Social interaction to me is just as important as academics and learning, and I think that hopefully for the future that's the route that we can go back to.
You get that urge to hug people, but then you have that where people are weird about each other. Like they don't want to, just for instance, the grocery store, people will give you the evil eye if you're going the wrong way in the arrows. It's like people don't treat people like that. But now it's like, even when we can take the masks off and we don't have to follow the arrows, how are people gonna be about like you getting in other people's personal space, and are they gonna be rude about it? I remember the relationships and how it was before, and they're the same people. They're absolutely the same people. And the love is still there for dance, and the love for each other is still there. And I think as we're getting over the shock of everything that's happening, I think we're just kind of getting used to it.
Being a young educator and being affected by the pandemic and seeing the effect on the kids, like, I feel like I've taken both the negative and the positive, and I've been able to mesh the two. I feel like it's been really hard not knowing what's coming next. My hope would be that we create a strong framework, so that way we're prepared for any situation.
Which we didn't think we were gonna get really anything, we were just gonna try and get through this year and then see how next year went. And they did really well. They came in, they were wearing their masks. It's great that they still love it even though it's so different.
I just really hope the kids keep staying resilient as they are, and that we keep meeting their needs as they come, and that's it.
Tens of thousands of students are heading back to school all across the county today.
Yeah, the day is finally here. It is Monday, April 12th, and nearly 50,000 students are returning to class for the first time since March 2020.
Been waiting for it for quite some time. We are elated to have our kids back. Quite honestly, as an educator, past 23 years, I feel like I just got my teaching credential. This is my first class. It feels wonderful. I'm just so happy to get kids back. It's a great day.